Well, welcome back to Lucore Automotive Services. Today we're doing something a little special. For those of you who know, and for those of you who don't know, this is Bill's 1979 Chevy Malibu from Old Man's Garage and Street Race Channel. Those guys have been letting us work on some of their toys over the years, and we're proud to have Bill's Malibu in here once again for another small treatment. We are going to be updating his upper and lower front control arms and tall upper ball joints on this girl for better suspension geometry. Basically, we're using the TRZ Motorsports fabricated lower control arms and upper control arms. Quite honestly, some items of beauty. They look as good as they're going to perform. And they're a really nice piece. We've also got tall upper ball joints for more down travel. And we'll get this thing going even better for as far as, you know, daily driver race cars go. We should be doing pretty good. Let me get the hood popped open on this thing and get it racked and up in the air. We'll start ripping this thing apart. Get it over onto the alignment rack and get everything straightened up so that it goes straight between point A and point B. Ooh, it's much blingier than the last time I saw this car. CVF Racing Serpentine system. I love CVF systems. They are a wonderful upgrade to what's going on in the world. CVF billet hood hinges too. Those are darn sexy. Very cool. Oh, I gotta get the phone. I'm playing Dave today. Dave's on vacation. Actually, everybody's gone today. Just a quiet day doing what I do. Alright, so I don't know if you can see it in here or not, but the bushings are splitting, which is, you know, it happens when stuff's 45 years old. So I start this process. I take my upper shock bolt out. I'll remove my lower shocks, get the shock out of the assembly. Then we'll loosen our upper ball joint. We'll loosen our lower ball joint. We'll use the spring pressure to help knock the joint loose here and here. Remove our sway bar links. We'll compress the spring, and then we'll drop the lower control arm out, do the lower control arm, put the lower control arm, the spring, and the shock back together, and then we'll do the upper control arm. That's just the easiest way I've found to do these. It allows me to leave the knuckle just hanging in the car the entire time without having to disconnect brakes or steering components. We will play with the bump steer kit once we get it over on the alignment rack. It's probably pretty close. I'm sure we set this up the last time it was in here. I think we put those, we might have put those on this thing back in the day. I don't remember. That's been a while ago. So anyway, pretty straightforward stuff. Get our bits and pieces and we'll get moving along. TRZ Motorsports upper and lower tubular control arms. G-body. Those are some really long uppers. Also from TRZ. Very nice. Alright, so my sway bar links have been removed. My upper and lower ball joints are loose but not completely removed, and I do that because I want to use the spring pressure from the coil spring to help separate the ball joint for the tapered unit. I need to pull my shocks out of there. Dual adjustables. Looks like they opened up the arm to make them fit. The new tubular arms will make it much easier to adjust those. Viking Crusaders. Very nice. Now, if I strike this correctly, come on. Oh, there it went. Upper one came free. And the lower one's free. All right, so that allows us to put our spring compressor inside. Compressor spring. Drop the lower control arm out, replace the lower control arm, put the spring back in, put the shock back in, and that'll hold our knuckle as we change out the upper arm. Let me grab my OTC spring compressor because it's a handy dandy tool. They're not cheap, but they're worth every penny. I've used that thing a ton of times. I can't tell you how many control arm bushings I've done on different cars and use this OTC spring compressor. It works really nice. It does the job it needs to. It keeps me safe. Mr. Block of Wood for the win. Oh, there we go. Grab my happy little pry bar. All right, so I just got 2 bolts to take out, drop my control arm out, put our new control arm in, and we go back together. Easy enough. So these, I should be able to sneak out around the steering, but I forgot to unlock the steering column. Which realistically with race cars, you should remove the lock plate or knock the lock plate tabs off. Because if you're doing a pass and something happens, an event happens, that like a throttle stick's open, you want to shut the key off and hopefully it turns the car off. But when you turn the key off, it locks the steering wheel, so now you've just gone from a wide open throttle situation to an I can't steer situation. So whenever you're doing silly stuff in cars that involves going fast, I highly recommend you disable the ignition lock that locks your column. Just something to think about. Nice clean bolts. This car was definitely like garage kept its entire life. So let's get our brand new TRZ lower. The TRZ lower does not have a sway bar mounting point. So I'll just remove the sway bar from the car and then he can decide what he wants to do from there. It'll make the car not as much fun on the roads, but it'll still be perfectly drivable that way. What are those, Delrin? Delrin bushings? Nice. Nice stuff, TRZ. I like it. Your welds are amazing. I wish I could weld that good. I don't think I'll ever weld enough stuff to be that good. It takes a steady hand, which I also don't have anymore. So this fits in there nice. I'm going to put my nuts on. I'm going to leave them loose, and once it's on the alignment rack with the weight of the car sitting on it, that's when I'll lock down my lower control arm bolts so that the weight of the car is pushing them into their natural aspect, and then we will make it work from there. always tighten them down just enough so that they're just loose, because I have gotten a little overzealous and test driven a car before and forgotten to tighten those down. And that way when I come back from my test drive and I remember, oh, I didn't tighten those yet, and I put it back up on the rack, the nuts are still there. And if you don't do that, sometimes the nuts aren't still there. Coil spring. Looks like you could use these with coilovers too, if you wanted to. The index for my lower coil was directly at the back. The top shouldn't make a difference. I think I need to go like this. My balls right, let's go in. Alright, so my nut's unengaged enough to hold it, and if I did my stuff right, that coil should rest right where it needs to. Alright, I think that'll do. Let's take her apart. Right in here. I should probably turn Mr. Compressor off. I don't really need him running in the background anymore today. That's what I'm looking for. I want the plates as far apart as I can get them in the spring because it compresses the majority of the spring that way. The plate's engaged correctly. A big difference on how it compresses the spring. If you got them offset, it'll put a bend into the spring. It makes it hard to get it out and get it back in. These arms are kind of tight, but it's manageable. Give me my big wrench. We'll turn our coil down. Yikes. When I get this coil compressed enough, it'll start to spin in the pocket. The control arms are unloading and it's loose. All that spring energy that holds this car off the ground is now compressed in that guy. I don't have to worry about eating it. So the next step, I'm going to go ahead and drop this lower control arm. I'm going to put that shock in that side. Once that shock's in this side, I'll put this side back together. And I will put the shock in this side, and then we'll do our upper control arms. So our limit on down travel is the shocks, because you can see the upper shock washers are being formed into something that's soon going to release the nut. So I'm going to put new upper washers on and probably double them up, because that just that looks like it was a couple of launches away from letting go. Let's see if I have any of those. I think I do. I wonder if TRZ will end up making a version of these with sway bar mounts. Be easy enough to do, it'd just be a tab. There's room there to do it. The shock mounting bolts for the lower shock point are metric. The TRZ shock bolts are standard. So be sure you don't cram your metric bolts into the standard threads on these beautiful control arms. I got some new bolts, hardware. I may have to go to the hardware store. I may not have the ones I need for that. We got full thread engagement with a 1-inch bolt. So I mounted these with the adjusters for the shocks facing outboard. If you look, these are recessed. The pocket's got a recess so that you can get your fingers on them. And it looks like the dials would get hit by the reinforcement plate in here, so that looked like the best option. Alright. That looks kosher. And we can put, oh, I need another bolt. I'm gonna have to go to the hardware store for one bolt. I gotta have a bolt in the bolt bin. Alright, we'll get back to this scene. I'm gonna go get some lunch. If you've been with me this far, thank you very much for watching as we make progress on the front end of Bill's 1979 Malibu. Absolutely fantastic car. We really appreciate you guys bringing us all your vehicles and letting us work our magic on them. It's a lot of fun sometimes, not all the time, but it's a lot of fun working on some of this stuff. It's cool to make them see, do what we do and then see what they do and hear back how they do better. This is going to be an excellent upgrade for his front suspension on this car. I'm sure he's going to see some improvements. So I'm going to get some lunch. I'll be back. Well, kudos to you guys. The fit and finish on this is really pretty amazing. So we're going to drop this thing down and take out our upper bolts. I'll show you how to change the control arms out in the car without removing headers and all that heavy duty stuff. Should be able to sneak them out. We usually are. Let me get this thing down and get my upper control arm nuts removed on both control arms. My upper ball joints are already off on both sides. So we are ready. Man, that wind is cooking. So we are ready to move forward, get our upper arms done. Once our upper arms are done, we'll lock everything down, double check everything, move it over to the alignment rack, get our alignment set up, make sure we're good with that, and then we'll be done. Not too bad. Got a few hours in it. Luckily, this is an old car that had a really good life, and I'm not fighting bolts locked in the bushings and dumb stuff like that. So actually kind of a relaxing process on this car because everything came apart and nothing really fought me on this one. So that's a plus. Let me drop this thing down. I got my shocks in. My lower control arm bolts are in but not tight. And I haven't done my cotter pins or tightened my lower ball joints yet, but that will come at the end. Alright, so on this side we got lucky. We didn't even have to pull the bolts out, although this one's loose. These are knurled, so the knurls should be locked into the frame. I don't know why there's a washer on there. I've never seen one with washers on it before, but that doesn't mean that's not how they did it. Looks like that one's got a washer on it too. Those knurls are there to lock the bolt into the frame so that when your alignment guy is doing the alignment, these bolts don't spin. So there's a substantial weight savings, and I'm going to guess that these being drag race units, the ball joints back and probably in more than the factory setup, because we always like more caster. This car already had a stack of shims to increase caster for more stability at speed, and I'm going to guess that this unit won't need quite that much. Let me get this thing back in there and we'll make it happen. So apparently these came with the washers from the factory, near as I can tell. They don't look like they've ever been removed. You don't want to put a socket on these bolts and rotate them because they are knurled. You can see here how bad these upper control arm bushings are. How that one's completely gone. And that's a big part of why we're doing all this work on the front end of this rig. It's going to need some new shock bushings for the stem. I don't have those. That one's really compressed because the weight of the spring is pushing down on it, and it's really showing its the strength of the coil spring against that bushing. So the trick to getting these control arms out is you knock these bolts out. And what I do is I take a chisel on an air hammer and I just get in between the body and the bolt and I knock them loose, pull the bolts out, and the control arm comes out without having to remove steering shaft or inner fender wells or any of all that stuff. So I probably need my really long one for this guy. There's your cheat code to doing upper control arms. Ow. Those ball joints have some wear to them, although he has run this down the track a time or two, so. Upper stop bushings have been removed, probably for more down travel. Unfortunately, that means your shock is being your down travel limiter. These newer upper control arms have down limit adjusters to them, which is going to be really nice. So we can save the guts of these Viking shocks from full down travel. Set those guys back in there. Get my new arm. The guys labeled them for us. Made in the USA. These things are so sexy. You're gonna have to notch your fender well there, buddy, to see if you want that notched or if you just want the bolt cut off. I guess we could just cut the bolt off. Not gonna be using all of that. I hope. that would be a very lot of, that would be a lot of limit. I'm going to actually knock those bolts back in, the knurls, with the air hammer, and hopefully they will hold while I tighten down my bolts. And that's that. Let's get it back together, get it over on the alignment rack. Oh, we got her up on the rack. I've got just pretty close on my camber side to side. I need to take my toe out quite a bit more than what I already have. I've gone out 3 turns on each side on the tie rod ends. You can see he was scrubbing his fender lips. We got a good amount of space in there now. I went a -degree camber to give us that clearance in there, to give us all that we could go after. I can give this side a touch more, but this one was scrubbing the tire too. Some point. I turned both of my tie rod ends out 3 turns to space them out. Probably gonna have to go at least another full turn. These arms must move the knuckle out probably I don't know, half an inch or so compared to the factory stuff. I can lock down my bolts now that it's on the alignment rack. And get us finalized up. This thing ought to be a rocket. Steering wheel is going to be off. They're within 1/8 of an inch, which is pretty close. That's with 0.2 toe in. Let's roll it back. Let's sweep our caster and basically just start over with a fresh comp, because how far those front tires were out, I'm not expecting my compensation to be accurate, so we start over, re-roll it, re-sweep caster, and then we'll see what our numbers look like from there. Not too bad. My camber is within a couple of tenths. The caster's dead on, so I want to add or subtract camber. I'll probably take camber out of this side to match it up with this side. And then we'll reset toe. Toe's pretty close. Let's see what toe does on lift. Now the steering wheel's off to the left just a bit. I don't remember if I can move the steering wheel a tooth on these. I think you can. I don't remember. I'll have to look. I'm supposed to have a guy coming to use the dyno today for some race car tuning. We'll see if that ends up happening. Bump steer's negligible. We'll leave it right there. Well, it took a few rounds, but we got it. We're within 1/10 on camber, within 1/10 on caster. My toe's looking pretty good, and my toe out on lift, sorry, toe in on lift, on bump steer is negligible. So we are right where we want to be with the factory spindles, the TRZ upper and lower control arms. We do have bump steer kit on here. I'm going to have him take a look at his brakes when he gets a chance, because the rears are looking a little thin. Also going to bring to his attention that he has a little bit of an obstruction on his rear shocks. You can see the shocks are actually, oh, you can't see. The shocks are actually hitting the anti-roll bar, and it's kind of making a bit of a mess out of his Viking coilovers. So clearance issues. Not too bad, everything's looking pretty good. All his locks are locked down. His brake pads are looking pretty thin. Looks like he had a caliper come loose at some point. Rub the wheel. but stuff happens. It does. Got the UMI controls in the back to hold his axle in place. That looks like similar to the Funkhauser Racing anti-roll bar. I don't know if that's whose that is or not, honestly. Funkhauser Racing makes some really cool bits. But all I gotta do is lock down my jam nuts. I've greased up my lower ball joints. I have everything back in place. We have a good amount of travel yet. Probably 2 inches before we bottom out. I don't know if he's going to put limiters on these or not. I have the bump stops on the control arms set to contact the frame just before the Viking front shocks max out. That's just to protect the internal valving of the shocks. And it does need new front for shock upper bushings because those things have been beaten out of this thing. But all in all, it's looking pretty good. Just under a degree negative camber, 8 degrees caster, which is going to make this thing really, really stable going down the road, or down the straight line at any rate. But with that, we're going to get this thing stripped down, lock everything down, pull it outside, and Bill can come get her. It's supposed to snow tomorrow, so I don't think he's going to be driving this tomorrow unless he brings a set of snow tires. I've never seen skinny snow tires on a car. That'll be something new. Anyway, you guys have a great day. Excuse me. You guys have a great day. We'll see you on the next one.